Everybody, and welcome to Toffee Bluecast. Sorry about that. It went off because it hasn't gone live to Twitter, and we've had to go ahead without it going live to Twitter. But we did try and drop it on Twitter as well. But for some reason, it hasn't gone live to Twitter. But we are here. Thanks, everybody, for coming on and being patient there. We're ready. Me and Paul are ready now. And we have got Pablo on, which we're all excited about. And he's going to be a cracking guest. We just had a little conversation with him in the studio. And we'll introduce him straight away now. Pablo, let's get him on.
Hello, I am still here. Don't worry.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks for having me on, but I'll wait till the end until I do that, just to see how it goes. You know, let's not get too premature on that.
You've been on the show twice now, Pablo. So.
Cool.
Because we just went live for 2 minutes and then went live again. And like I say, it hasn't gone live to my Twitter, but it is live on the Bluecast channel. And so we're all here now. Let's get nice and relaxed and let's have some Everton conversation and hope that we can get some good info from you, Pablo, because I don't understand the Fab that much. So I'm interested on anything you say. I
am not an expert on the Fab. I'll tell you that straight away. But there's quite a lot of acronyms that fly around quite a lot. Where you've got the FAB, you've got the ESSG, and you've got all of these different sort of groups, and you're not really sure. So I was exactly the same before I applied for this. I wasn't 100% sure if it was if it was valid, if it was even something that was that was listened to, because obviously we've seen that the directors haven't turned up when they're supposed to have turned up for the last meetings and things like that. So before I applied for it, I did ask around and just said, is this just a club like paying lip service and just pretending they're listening to their fans just to say that they are? But I have had reassurances that that no, this is a proper thing, and it is. I think going to be crucial over the next few years, because obviously we've had two awful traumatic years on the pitch and off the pitch, really, with everything that's happened in Russia and the way that that's affected all our sponsorship and our revenue and things like that. So we've had 2 awful years, and now we've got changes on the board. So I think that the situation is at the moment that the relationship between the club and the fans is probably the biggest disconnect there's ever been. So the fan advisory board, for me, is where that bridge can be to start building that relationship back up again.
Brilliant. And what how did you sort of go through the process? What was the process of actually getting to the point where you are now?
Well, as I say, I sort of asked around a little bit. I chat on an ancient website, just like me, the People's Forum, and it's been going in various guises since the beginning of the internet. I think it started up as some sort of like IRC. Any techie people wouldn't know what that is. It's a really old text-based chat thing. Back in like 1994, 95, something like that. It was the Toffee Web forum for a while. It was affiliated to Toffee Web, and then we came away from Toffee Web, and then we became the People's Forum when David Moyes came in and said the People's Club thing. So it's been going for about sort of 25, 30 years, and it's all a text-based message board. And as I say, we've all been on there for donkey's years. It's more like a virtual pub that Evertonians hang out in rather than an actual Everton message board, because as I say, 25, 30 years, we've had births, marriages, deaths, we've had the whole lot in there, and you get to know these people. We just had a guy the other day, one of our members sadly passed away a few weeks ago, and his funeral was in California on Monday morning California time, and one of our members is there because he lives in California, so he went to the funeral. We had flowers there for him and stuff like that. So it all, all of those years. Why's that flipped up? We've got flipped off there, but you can still hear me all right?
Yeah, got you.
Fine, okay. I've gone black on my screen, that's all.
There we go.
I say it's mainly through the People's Forum that I've got my main sort of Everton links over the years. So I've kind of I've seen behind the scenes a little bit over the years. I've not been the biggest fan of Mr. Kenwright for the last 20 years. But I'd sort of given up any sort of hope of fans ever having any say in it, really. And then, as I say, over the last few years, particularly obviously with the marches and the sit-ins and things like that, I do not like using the P word. I don't like calling them protests. They are acts of support. They are positive acts of support for your football club. They're not protests. I don't like calling them that. And I think that, like I say, towards the end of last season, when the fans started doing the coach welcomes, and then when things started going even worse again this year, I think it just sort of sounded like there was actually some they're actually being listened to, and I think that was what sort of got me interested again, because I say the All Together Now hashtag, it seemed that fans were actually sort of coming together, and it wasn't just one little group over here and one little group over there. It actually seemed like a more cohesive sort of thing. So that's kind of why I got why I'm applying for it, really, because I really think that this can be an actual genuine thing where the fans have a say.
Have you kind of been, like you're saying, the support that the fans have been doing, not the P word? Have you been part of those? Or
I've been every single one. Yeah, did the sit-in after Southampton. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a little while about that as well. But I think that for me, as I say, it just sort of seemed that it just seemed it was working. And when the NSNOW thing started coming out, and then all of the supporters groups started aligning behind it and just saying yep, and they got all of these sort of things sounded out, it sounded like it was a more cohesive sort of collection. And then I think that without trying to demean things or be negative about it in any way, the messages start getting a little bit mixed for me personally. I think when you had things like Ingalls out, I mean, most people don't know who Grant Ingalls is. So, the banners, I think, should have been a little bit more coordinated. I think they should have all had a hashtag with All Together Now on them. If you are, let people make their own banners, let them do what they want to do. But it should be that we are all one in this, and we're all So I think that having done this years ago, because I was part of a leafleting campaign the weekend before Wayne Rooney got sold. We went around the pubs and around Goodison with a leaflet called The Truth, because there was a family friend of the Rooneys that knew what was going on and that he was being forced out of the football club. Obviously the line was that he's handed in a transfer request, he wants to go, and the club made a scapegoat out of him. And then, if anyone's seen the Tony Bellew podcast last year, Wayne Rooney says, I got forced out, got told that I was getting sold and all that, and he's actually we knew all this 25 years ago or 20 years ago. So it's one of these things where at the time, obviously in 2002, it was kind of, the internet wasn't what it was. We had Messenger and stuff like that, but you didn't have the sort of swell that you've got now with social media and Twitter and Facebook, and the way of connecting people and sort of rallying people around to actually all act as one. This is much more cohesive now, so it just seems that it's basically the right time for change. And I genuinely think that if the various supporters groups that organised all that last season, if they hadn't done what they did, then those 3 board members would still be there. 100% they would be. Yeah,
it's good what you say about the groups getting together. God, I'm in teachers union, so it's taken us years to get our 3 or 4 unions together. So actually we've as Everton groups, they've actually done quite well to get together.
It's difficult, because I think that I say that I don't really want to name any of the individual groups that were involved in it, because I say it is more of a sort of collective sort of thing. But I think that, as I say, for me, it kind of got a bit. As I say, the thing is, if you use the word protest, then you immediately give the club ammunition to shoot back at you, and it becomes a negative thing. And anyone that sees that as being a bad thing, Evertonians aren't too sure. They might not be as savvy. They might not know all of the stuff that Ken Wright's done, and there is a long list, let me tell you, of what's gone on. So they might just be thinking, well, what is this now? They're thinking that the fans are kicking off because we're in danger of getting relegated, but it is so much more than that. It is so much more than that. Our club has not been well run for a long, long time. I mean, I could go on with a long, long list of things, but I genuinely think that the worst thing, and I say 20 odd years now that I've been like campaigning and sort of against Mr. Kenwright, the worst thing is that statement that went out in January, because that is the first time that I've seen it privately. I've seen Evertonians, shareholders at AGMs and EGMs being derided by club staff, by EFC staff, just saying, just literally asking difficult questions of the club when they wanted to take us to Kirby and all of that. And past people that are not at the club anymore. We're talking about previous people as well. But that actual official club statement, throwing the fans under the bus as it did, is the worst thing that I've ever seen. And that's including, you have to remember, our chairman, Mr. Kenwright, standing up in front of an AGM in 2004, 2005 and introducing a man who he said was wanting to invest in Everton and that was a lifelong Evertonian, and stood up, Chris Samuelson, and spoke to the AGM and said that he was going to invest, and he had all this sort of thing. And someone asked him the question, who scored the winning goal in the 1966 FA Cup final? And he went, in 1966, I was a student in Munich. So, and everyone, just the whole room just went boom. I wasn't born till 1973, and I know who scored the winning goal in the 1966 FA Cup final, Yeah. So we sussed him out in the meeting that he was a blagger, and it was all bullshit. And you've got to remember that our chairman presented him as being genuine, as someone that is going to invest in the club. And again, from someone within the club, director of communications at the time, told us, fans at the time, that it was a means to an end. That was exactly what he described it as, because it was just so. For me personally, I think there's been a lot of smoke and mirrors in the whole time that Mr. Kenwright's been at the club, and I think that I don't blame him for a lot of it, because I think he's had a lot of smoke blown up his arse, and I think he's become deluded to think that he is Mr. Everton. I think he's been bigged up that much that he thinks that the club can't survive without him, and that he's got Everton's best interests at heart, and that that the club cannot continue without his stewardship. Yeah. And that's patently not true. But I think that's the ego of the man. That's the business he's in. He's a lovey. It's he's in acting circles. That's what it is. You have egos and stuff like that. And I think he's genuinely thinks that he is the best thing for Everton. I don't think it's done out of malice. I think it's done out of delusion.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting here you speak like this, Pablo, because I think the perhaps impression that I've heard on Twitter, people would sort of saying this kind of thing, that the Fab in the past has had in some people's minds a role of just nothing controversial, just a kind of a pleaser for the rest of the fans and that kind of thing, like you were saying at the beginning. Yeah. So it's interesting that you sort of saying these things, and obviously your great experience and everything else through what you've done and about Bill. Do you think people who are applying for the FAB are going to be as comfortable as you sort of talking about Mr. Kenwright in this way, or do you think
I haven't got a clue? I genuinely don't know. The thing is that I'm me. This is I'm not talking to you now. I'm not on the FAB. When I'm on the FAB, I might need to tone these things down a bit. I might need to. It might be that someone from the club sees this and they blacklist me and just say, listen, he's not getting on the FAB. That might be the case. I don't know, but I know what I know, and I'm not saying anything that is not provable and that is thingy. This is stuff that I've experienced over the last 25 years, and it's stuff that I believe, and that's where I'm at with it.
No, good on you. No,
I was just going to say though, Pablo, this is what I spoke to you on a space, and you say things out of the art, and you say what us fans feel, and that's why I'd massively want you on the Fab, because I wouldn't want I know this is the saying that goes around, a yes man on the Fab that's just there and doesn't do nothing. I feel like you said, this is a point where we need change more than ever. We're in the biggest trouble we've ever been in. And I think you coming in, I wouldn't want you to like you just said, you say things out of the art. I wouldn't want you to tone things down. I'd want you, if you was on that Fab, the way you spoke, James just said in the comments that I like this guy already. I'm voting for him. The way you've just spoke is what we want on the Fab. And if someone come out and spoke like that, I feel that you could, like you've said, I've read your video. I feel you could get the connection again between the fans and the board and the club. I think that's why I like you, and I will 100% vote for you because I like the way you speak now. And if you when you're on the Fab, if you're like the way you've been speaking, I finally feel like problems could get sorted.
Yeah, well, I mean, I say I'd rather just be. I'm too long in the tooth. I'm not old. I'm 50. That's not ridiculously old. I know, but I've gone past the time of my life where you sort of, I don't know, you just try to be something that you're not, and I'm not saying that I would talk like this in Fab meetings and things like that, because that's not what they're there for. They're not there for slagging people. They're there to go forwards. But that's the thing. What I've just said there is that, Ken writes this, that, and the other, but I get it why, and I'm willing to sort of give him a little bit of leeway to say I don't think he's done any of this maliciously. I just think he's incompetent. He's just not capable of doing it. You just got to remember that he's sold everything. He's sold. We don't own anything other than Goodison Park. He sold the shop. He sold Belfield. He sold the Finch Farm. We rent that. We don't own anything, and that has all been for him to stay in place. So I genuinely think that he is delusional. He thinks that he's the best thing for Everton, and obviously we just need change. We just need professional people running the club that know what they're doing. But for me, you do still need that Everton steering. You do need someone to like say that badge that came out a few years ago, right? Ken Wright was there for that. How any Evertonian looked at that and said, "Yeah, let's have that as a badge." Yeah, that's the sort of thing I see the FAB as being a guiding hand. And if Ken Wright's not there anymore, then I think that's kind of what it be. I mean, obviously, there's been names bandied around who might be coming into the board that are Evertonians as well. But for me, it's kind of they're there to guide. They're there to be sense checked, to make sure that we don't end up like Cardiff getting red shirts, and we don't end up with changing the club motto or the club's name and things like that. It's just a regulatory sort of thing to just make sure that the club are doing the right things, and you've got that Evertonian hand on the tiller, if you like. And that's kind of the way that I think that's the way I see the Fab being. But for me, the biggest challenge the Fab have got is at the moment that there's so much mistrust of the club that because they are aligned with the club, because they have to be aligned with the club. Yeah. Going back to what you originally asked at the beginning there, Dan, what the Fab is, it's not just another group. This is literally supposed to be like literally a join between the game. It overlaps. If you think of a Venn diagram, you've got the fans, you've got the club, and you've got a Venn diagram, and it laps over. So it has to be connected to the club, but it is independent. It is absolutely independent. So these meetings that are held, they are not Everton meetings that the Fab are invited to. They are Fab meetings that Everton are invited to, and Everton will say, yes, we're going to send X, Y, Z, and they're going to do a presentation on this. And if the Fab say, well, that's no good to us, we don't want to know about that, then they don't do it. And they say, no, we want this instead. And Everton will send someone else to do something else. The Fab is independent. And that's, I think a lot of people, and myself included, thought it was just a mouthpiece for the club. They thought that it was just, well, as you said earlier on, Paul, as if it was a little bit kind of like, oh, well, they're just saying, it's just trying to make the fans think that they are, they're listening to us, and that the fans do have a say in things. But I genuinely do think that they do have an actual say in things. And when they haven't turned up for these last two meetings, they didn't turn up in March, didn't turn up in May, when they're supposed to have board representation quarterly, is the agreement that they've got with the Fab. Now, if they do that next year, then the Fab can go to the Premier League and say, hey, they're not holding up their side of the bargain. That's not in place yet, but it is in place next season. So basically, the reason that these advisory boards are coming in is essentially, I think, don't know, remember, not an expert on Fab, but my understanding of it is that the Premier League are like terrified of being regulated by the government. So they're trying to bring in their own to say, look, we can self-regulate. Look, all of our fans have, or all of our clubs have a fan advisory board, and the club has to listen to them. So the fans are having a say in these things. So government don't need to get involved and regulate it. Thanks, we're doing it ourselves. So next season, every club in the Premier League has to have a fan advisory board. So at the moment, there's only 6 or 7, I think, that have got them, that have had them this year. But this summer, they will all be putting them together, because by the start of next season, they've all got to have a fan advisory board in place. And Everton are ahead of the curve, because we've been doing this for whatever it is. I think the first meeting was last July. So we're already sort of up and running, and they've already got little subcommittees doing this, that, and the other. And as I understand it, what we're doing and the groups that we're linked in, because this is the idea is that the FAB is also a link between the Disabled Supporters Association and all of the other sort of associations. So the idea is that they're kind of just this different level. I'm going to go that way, actually, sideways, not up and down. I don't want the club at the top of it. I want the club over here on the right. So it's literally all of the supporters groups and the fans and everything are here, and then they all feed into the FAB, and then the FAB go to the club, and they're that link between the club and all of the different supporters groups and the fan groups, stuff like that. But all of the other groups are all based on the match day experience, about match tickets, about what they're selling on the things and stuff like that. And but FAB are about the actual architecture of the club and about the strategy. It's a strategic level as to what they're going to be doing going forward. It's about the new ground. It's a bigger sort of picture, but it also encompasses all of those other bits and bobs as well. So, for example, if the Disabled Supporters Club have put something into Everton and said, yeah, we want this, and they've gone, yeah, we'll get you that, and then, yeah, we'll get you that, and every meeting they have with him, they keep promising it, then they can escalate it to FAB and say, can you go back to the club and say, listen, you've been promising us this for months now, can we have it? That's my understanding of it. It might not be 100% right, but I think that's the way that it works, and that's why I think it has more power. Because, as I say, if the club don't listen next season, then the FAB can go to the Premier League and say, they're not listening to us. Can you give them a kick up the arse, please? And that's the difference.
That's brilliant, because I didn't realise any of that. I thought it was put up by the club, like I said before. I thought it was put up by the club, and then people just applied to be on it. But then it didn't matter that they didn't turn up for 2 or 3 of the meetings, and it would just go on.
Well, the thing with that is,
it sounds like the linchpin, really, in the whole club structure connection with the fans. So
yeah, the thing to point out about that is that it was only the board members that didn't turn up. Yeah. So the first meeting that they had back in July, Denise Barrett-Baxendale and Graham Sharp came. Then in October, just Graham Sharp came. And then in March, neither of them came. And in May, neither of them came. But that's not to say Everton didn't turn up. Loads of other Everton employees came and did presentations. Kevin Thelwell went to one, and the stadium director went and did an update on how the stadium's going. So if you look at the actual minutes of the meeting, then you will see that there were loads of Everton senior management, just not anyone from the board. So to say Everton aren't taking it seriously and not turning up is completely and utterly false. If you look at the minutes of it, then they are turning up. It's just that the board are not turning up, and you know why the board aren't turning up, because that disastrous club statement meant that they completely and utterly, alienated themselves from the fans. I mean, there was rumours that this announcement that was just made, there was rumours that Graham Sharp quit back in February. That he's not been on the board since then over that, and they just haven't announced it yet. But no one's seen them. So I think that. I think if I remember rightly, they were saying that they've just had no contact with Denise Barrett-Baxendale whatsoever since that statement. And this was her idea. When the FABs first announced, if you go back and look at the reports of it and the first meetings and stuff like that, this was her idea. This was in response to the Super League idea that Everton were really vocal about. So therefore, we wanted to be, again, another first, with the first club to have a fan advisory board, and they were really right behind it. And then it's only when they've messed themselves up really, really badly with this statement in January, February, that they've now not turned up. They're the only ones they haven't turned up for. They were committed to it before that, but it's just the board, the club, are still coming to all of these meetings.
I find it interesting. Like you say, I was at a point where I did think that the FAB was just a shield for the board, and they just have them there and say that they talk to. That's what I thought. But then if you do look at it, to Jazz, did the interview, and he's on the Fab, isn't he? And he did the interview with Jazzball. He did the interview with Mashiri, didn't he? When Mashiri, I know Mashiri said he'd get a striker and he didn't. I don't want to remember. That's what we remember the interview for. But if you do actually think back, Mashiri did that interview with him. So it does show that they are looking to talk to the Fab. Like you say, it does show that they are looking to do it in my eyes, because Mashiri would never normally do an interview with a Fab member like that. So it probably is a bit of movement that if the Fab is set up right, that it can help us and it can be a big part on us reconnecting. Because I said to you, didn't I, Paul, when we went to that Bournemouth game, the fans and Everton are not connected at all. They've done nothing to. They didn't give us no. They didn't give us no like flags or banners or say. They didn't say, right, fans, this is the last game. We're going to give you everything that you need to keep us up. No. It was just disjointed. It was just like they'd left the fans.
There's a massive disconnect. A massive, like the loudest I've ever seen. And I say, there's. I don't think anyone's happy. I don't think any Evertonian is happy with where we're at. There's a few people that are, that are still, don't think it's Kenwright. Some think it's Mashiri. Some think it's Kenwright. Some think it's Stelwell. Some think it's Brands. It doesn't matter. The club is dysfunctional. And as I say, the culmination of it for me is still that statement. And there's no conjecture in what I'm just about to say, right? The facts of that statement for anyone that's not 100% sure about what actually happened is that we had a crucial game against Southampton, yeah? And remember the 48 hours thing last week, yeah? When the club wants to put things out on time, they very much can put things out on time. So when they put something out at 12 noon before a 3 o'clock kickoff, when most fans are already in the pubs, yeah, and when they know that there is an organised sit-in after the game, whether we win or lose, doesn't matter. There is a sit-in organised for after the game. So the club put out a club statement at 12 noon. And if you go back and read that statement, you'll realise that there's not actually that much in it. It's quite wishy-washy, generic about what actually happened, yeah? And it was just sort of like, we're not coming to the security advice, things like that. But there was nothing in it that the club couldn't say, that they couldn't defend, yeah? But at 11 minutes past 12, a BBC journalist called Juliet Farrington tweeted out from Everton's press room a photograph of that statement, printed statement that they'd been given in the press room, and she added that Denise Barrett-Baxendale had been manhandled by a male fan after the Brighton game. 4 pieces of information that were not in that club statement because they got told it, and one of the journalists, Greg O'Keefe, said in a podcast a week after, that's what they told us. They came in after they'd given out the statement. Everyone said, what the hell's this all about? And they said, oh, yeah, Denise was manhandled by a thing. And that's where headlock, I think it was the Athletic that said the word headlock first, but manhandled was what that Juliet woman said. And that's at 11 minutes past 12 when the statement only went out at 12 o'clock. So that can't have come from anywhere else other than Everton Football Club. So if that happened, why is it not in the statement?
Yeah.
And it's not in the statement. It's not in the statement because it means they don't have to defend it. It means that someone can't come back and say, where's your proof? Because Everton didn't put it in their statement. They put generic stuff that they can say, yeah, that kind of ish happened. And then they give the rest of it to go out to the journalists. And that is the worst thing I think they've ever done because there was no way back for them after that. It's horrific.
It was also 11 days. After,
yeah, exactly. And no one had heard a sniff of it. Not a sniff of it.
Nothing.
Which again, if that was the case, then they would have done it 3 days before. They would have done it whatever. 3 hours before a crucial match, which we then went on to lose, I might add. And then remembering that we are in a situation where the board have been told that you are not safe to go amongst the fans. They then send the players out in their cars and Yerry Mina and Anthony Gordon get confronted by the fans. Now, what I will say to you is that what they actually did is horrific, but it worked because what nobody is talking about is the fact that 3,000 fans stayed in the ground after that game. Yeah, me and my son were in the park end, and it's hard to count, but we roughly counted up how many people stayed in that ground, and I reckon there's about 3,000. 3,000 out of 40,000 is a lot of people. A lot of people to stay behind for a sit-in. But no one mentions that. They mention Anthony Gordon, Yerry Mina getting chased by fans. They mention the statement. And media-wise, the club is blacklisted. No one wants to talk to the club. No one believes a word that comes out of the club nowadays. So it's just a mess. And for me, getting back to the FAB, that's the bridge that needs to be connected. That divide is massive. It's absolutely massive, and it needs a clean brush to sweep it clean. You know, you can't have Ken Wright staying on, even if he stays as club like president or life president or something like that. Fans will not have it. They will not have it. You've got to have a clean sweep, in my opinion.
On what you've just said, Pablo, though, like, I think your job will be a lot easier if Ken Wright goes, because I like when you said about the badges and stuff like that, that the FAB would be the Evertonians saying what needs to be done. And I feel whilst Ken Wright's there, he will take that role. But I do believe, like, if he's not, it'd go to the FAB. I think that we know what Ken Wright's like. He thinks he knows everything about Everton. And I feel like you've got so much good information in you, and the FAB will as well, all of you, the team together, whoever it ends up being. I think you'll have all the information that probably Ken Wright out of the way would get you the FAB involved more, and it would make us a better football club. By removing Ken Wright, I just really do feel that the FAB could excel. I really do, and it gives make your job a lot easier, because I was just going to say to you, imagine if you was, because you are an you are an honest speaking person. You see Ken Wright for what he did. You was also frustrated, like you said, 19,000 fans stayed behind, and they completely conned us. You would probably call them out. If they told you to keep quiet about that and you're on the FAB, would you keep quiet, or would you think, I'm going to leave if they don't let me be myself?
I don't know. That's hard to say in that situation. I mean, obviously, I might not get on it after saying all this. I don't know, because I'm not necessarily here to be. You know, I'm only here to come on and have a chat with you guys, and you just sort of mentioned. Do you know what the main thing for me is? The reason that I've got all of this stuff up here and all this like around me is I want people to vote, because you say you think the FAB can be this. The FAB are doing good work. If you read through the minutes of the meetings, they haven't just been sat on their arses since last July. They're already doing stuff. They're already talking about away ticket allocations and things like that. This is not just a get the board thing at all. They're already doing it. And I think that because the club has been so badly run, I think that all the members of the FAB have got a really bad rap out of that, because people mistakenly think it's part of the club. They think, oh, it's a load of shit. Well, what are these FAB are useless? What are they actually doing? Go and read the minutes. They're doing loads. They're already doing loads. The FAB meet every month. The FAB have met since July last year. So the FAB have already had loads of meetings, nearly a year that they've been going. Yeah. And the FAB have met every month. And if you go back and read through that, they're taking queries in from the disabled supporters. They're talking about the price of food. They're talking about having more healthy options at the concession stalls around the ground. Talking about not just waiting till we get into Bramley Moor to instigate them to actually do those things now. The FAB is working already. It's just that at the moment, if the club don't cooperate or don't listen, there's nowhere for them to. They just have to put up with it, and that's what they have been doing. And so I know some people have resigned, and I get that, and I completely understand that, because it does look like the club are just sticking two fingers up to them. But when you think about the bigger picture of the boardroom changes, and as I say, that statement changed everything in January. I think that it doesn't. It seems obvious that the board wouldn't turn up to that. There's no way the board were going to turn up to it. But as I say, that doesn't mean that the FAB have just been sitting on their hands doing nothing. They haven't. They've had a meeting every month, and every month they have representation from Everton people coming in and talking to them about this and that and everything like that. So I say, anyone that doesn't know what the FAB does, go and have a look on their website, go and have a look at the minutes of the meetings, and go and have a look at what they've actually been doing already. Because I say, people just see, the interview with Mashiri, which I thought was a little bit whitewashed, to be honest. I did speak to Jazz about that very, very briefly about that, because that's when I first actually spoke to him, because it looked to me set up. It looked to me like the way it was filmed and everything. It didn't even look like they were in the same room. People were saying, were you actually even there? It looked like, those, like you used to get on, like when they're doing the movie premieres, and you've got like Harrison Ford sitting there asking questions, and then it cuts to the presenter asking him a question when they're not even in the same room. It looked like that to me. And I spoke to Jazz about it, and he was like, no, he was there. And I said, was that an accurate was that an accurate representation of the interview? You know, because it looked very sort of sterilized to me. And he said it looked very much sort of like, here's a question, here's an answer, and that they'd sort of cherry pick what they were. And Jazz said, oh, it wasn't an interview. I just asked him questions that had been put to us by that. So that's all it was, really. It wasn't like this. It wasn't where I could just sit there and just say, so what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about that? Jazz had a list of questions that had been put forward by committee, and they'd said, that's what we're asking. So it did happen, but for me, it was kind of a very sterilized sort of thing. And obviously, Mashiri said, you know, we get a striker and all that sort of thing. So I think that kind of was that added into the idea of the club just paying them lip service. The fact that he said we'll get a striker and we didn't, that then becomes, you know, that people will just take that one question, one answer, and say, "Oh, Fab's a load of shit." It's just that the club would just take the piss out of them. I don't know why you bother. You should all resign, and they don't realise that that's not what it's about. This is playing the long game here. As I say, think everything changes next season because of the Premier League. You know, so.
I felt really sorry for Jazz because, like I said, I've spoken to him before. And he's the nicest guy you'll ever speak to.
Yeah.
And like with what you've just explained, I didn't know that it was. But I did think in my head it was like the questions were written. Mashiri knew what he was going to get and planned to say what he was going to say. But I feel so sorry for Jazz because he thinks like you, Paul Pablo. He thinks the same things as us, and he probably really wants to ask it. But if you're put in that situation where you can't, then you can't do nothing. And I know Jazz, he's had it on Sky Sports, Jazz has as well. He's had a lot of crap. And if you generally do speak to him, he's a massive Evertonian and he thinks exactly the same things as us. And you just said, Pablo, that they are working hard. The Fab are working hard and the stuff's there. It just needs to be listened to. And even if they're not listening to it, for me, it doesn't mean we should give up. You can't give up. You've got to make sure the Fab is good on that chance that they could eventually listen. And like that, on what you're saying, I think we've got to make sure that Fab is bang on because you never know if Ken Wright goes, it might be the perfect chance for the Fab to excel.
Oh, it will be. I genuinely think it will be. This is what I'm saying. That's why I think it's such a key time at the moment because we're definitely getting new board members because 3 have gone, so we're definitely getting some new board members. Yeah, and regardless, even if Mr. Ken Wright does stay, he's not staying for long because he's old and he's not well. I mean, he is not going to be here for that much longer. You know, he's not going to be at the club that much longer. He's already said in that ridiculous letter that he wrote about having health issues and things like that. And I know that he's also cancelled meetings because he's not been well enough to attend them. So he's, you know, it's almost like the club almost have a duty of care to just sort of say to him, hang on a minute, are you actually well enough to be doing this job? A Premier League club manager, chairman is a stressful job. You know, it's a multi-million-pound industry. You know, I think he's 77 years old, not in the best of health. You know, there's an argument, no matter what you think of him and his decisions, that for his own good, the HR department should be, you know, saying to him, listen, mate, you need to take it easy. You know, should he be even in that role anyway? So even if he does stick around for a little bit longer, he won't be here for that much longer. And as I say, for me, the club is failing, but that doesn't mean the Fab is failing because the Fab are not the club. And that's the biggest thing for me that I wanted to get across. And I said it in that little video that I did. You know, people don't understand what the Fab is and what it isn't. That's the problem. I think they think that it's just a mouthpiece for the club. And I understand why they think that because I questioned it myself and I've asked questions about that. And the 2 words that will tell you why that is not a mouthpiece for the club is Dave Kelly. Dave Kelly will not take any shit from anybody. Dave Kelly's been a union man for years. He knows all the tricks in the book. And the fact that Dave is involved, I don't know Dave that well. I know him more from the food banks and me and my son going to the food banks. And my son's a sports journalist. He's just finished his degree at Preston. And he's interviewed Dave and Ian Byrne about the food banks. He interviewed Jazz about the Mashiri interview. He interviewed some of the fan groups about the marches and things like that. So that's my main knowledge of it has come from that. It's just been through getting my son to get some interviews with people and stuff like that. So I only really met Jazz very, very briefly when he got interviewed by my son. And I've spoken to just a couple of times on Twitter. That's about it. But Dave, I'll have a little bit of a natter with when I go to the food bank and stuff like that. And as I say, Dave is literally, you know, he is like Everton through and through. And I tell you, if Dave had been listened to a long time ago, then we would not be in the situation that we're in. We absolutely wouldn't have been. And it's not anything revolutionary that he wants. He just wants, the best for Everton, as do most of us,
Do I know obviously there's 8 people up for the application and stuff. Do you know any of the other people applying for the?
No, the only one that I know, and I don't know him well, is Paul Rigby, and he's also on the People's Forum with me. But I didn't know. I used to be an admin on the People's Forum. So when his name came up, Paul Rigby, I'm sure that's one of our things. And his username's Delaware on the thing. So I know people as usernames. I don't know them as real names. Same as you do on most forums and that. So I know that he's. I know that he is a staunch Evertonian, been doing it for a long, long time, and and I thought his pitch was excellent as well. It's really, really good as well. So for anyone that is listening to this now and I say doesn't know what the FAB is, doesn't know what the vote's about and all that sort of thing, if you have a look on this is my Twitter up here above my head. If you're going to have a look on that, then it's got all the links to go and have a look. If you go and have a look, you can read the bios of all of the people. All 8 people have put their bio about who they are and why they want to be involved in the FAB. There's some really, really good people that want to do it. And for me, I'm actually not that bothered if I get on it. I just want people to vote. I want people to take this seriously, and I want them to actually vote and get involved in this, because the FAB represents us as fans. That's what it's there for. It's there to be, they're the only people that they're going to listen to. So it makes sense for people to get behind it and to read about these people, because they are effectively representing you to the club. So it makes sense to go and have a look at it and go and check out what everyone's about. You can vote for up to 3 people. And I voted for 3. I voted for 2 of the other people that are on there as well. So just make sure that you do it. We've got until 30th of June, so you've got plenty of time to get that done. You've got just over a week left to get your votes registered. So make sure you do that.
There's lots of stuff on the club website, isn't there? And lots of links there as well. Saw your tweet on there as well that people can click on and get to you as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we I say you asked like ages ago, like 40 minutes ago, about what the process was. That was sort of part of it. It was like you're allowed to campaign. Now, I am on the People's Forum and I am on Twitter. That's all I talk about Everton on. I don't talk about Everton. I'm not on any of the other forums. I used to be on Toffee Web a little while ago, well, a long time ago now, probably when we were sort of their forum. But I haven't got the sort of reach. I don't know a lot of Evertonians, so sort of doing things like this. So thank you very much for asking me on. I will now thank you now that I know that it's been all right.
I'm impressed with myself here, because when you said these are the links, I've put you on the big screen. It looks like you're in Dyche's seat. It looks like you because it looks like you've got a desk below you, and I've made the links bigger so you can see what you have to go on.
I've got all sorts here. I got a little
it looks good
with a thing. I've got all nice setup here and that, because I do Twitch streaming, so I've got all my stuff set up. But yeah, I think, I don't know. For me, I just want people to take this seriously. I don't care if I get onto it or not. I want whoever gets onto it. I just want people to realise this is a real thing, and I think that because of the disconnect with the club, people just think, well, the club's shit, so that means everything connected to the club is shit. And this isn't shit. I genuinely don't think it's shit, or I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be applying to join it. I genuinely think that this can actually have a say. And as I say, from next year, they've sort of got to listen to us. And the thing you've got to remember, that if we are changing, if we've got new directors, we've got new board, we've got new ever, they're going to need to listen to us as well, because they want to know what's going on. We're going into a new stadium. We've got the Goodison legacy. We want to make sure that we do properly with that. It's such a key time for the club. I just think that this FAB is just so important to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I was just going to say, anyone, because we've got quite a few people watching, listening. If you've got any sort of questions that you want to put over to us, then please do so. And I was just going to say, in a couple of minutes, sort of just going away from Fab just for a sec, Pablo, how did you sort of start? Have you started like most of us, where it's been father taking you to the game and stuff like that?
Yeah, my dad's from Liverpool, from Old Swan, and my mum and dad used to have season tickets in the 60s. Mum fell in love with Alan Ball. I was born in 1973, and I was actually on the Gladys Street in my mum's tum with they all the wives used to go and all knit. They were all knitting like booties and stuff like that for me and things like that. So yeah, literally from birth. But my mum's from North Wales. I met my dad when he came here on holiday. So I've grown. They decided to bring the kids up in North Wales. So I'm a wool, I'm afraid. Someone replied, that's the only negative one I've had on any of my tweets about this last week was just what we need. Some fucking wool telling the board what to do again. Great, cheers, thanks.
Doesn't make you a bad person, Pablo. Doesn't make you a bad person.
I say I've always represented myself as being from Liverpool. I'm very proud to be from Liverpool, you know. So yeah, we've got a bit of a checkered family. Mum's Welsh, brother's Welsh. My dad's Scouse and I'm Scouse. So I'm the same. Dad lived here for 50 years, and my dad's still got his Scouse accent. He still looks like he's never left Old Swan. So yeah, so that was it really. And I say it's, you know, born not manufactured, isn't it? That's the way it goes, you know. So went to my first game when I was like 8. 1981 Coventry, 21st of February, day after my 8th birthday. We won 3-0. Peter Eastoe scored, who was my favourite player at the time. And the only thing I can remember is that we were in the old park end up above where the away fans were down the bottom, and the attendance ended with a 1. I think it was 26,731. And I remember when it got announced, my dad said, "You're the one. That's you." So I can remember that about it. And then when my brother came along a little bit older, we used to go. We didn't go often. We didn't go a lot, and we didn't go through the glory years. I went to 2 games that season, I think, in the glory years. I can remember going to the Luton FA Cup game when in '86 as well when Lineker scored. But yeah, got season tickets around about 1996, and then I moved down to London and travelled up with Escler, the London Supporters Club, for a few years, and then actually when my son came along, that's when I actually stopped going because money, couldn't afford it. So only got a season ticket again a couple of seasons ago, and I'm back in the park end now. So yeah, now that I'm sort of back based up here and that, I sort of don't know, just I can get involved in this again now. Because as I say, I was involved in it even when I was like that 2002. I would have been living away then, because I can remember coming up the motorway and handing out those truth leaflets to Everton supporters in the services on the way up and things like that. So yeah, so that's my Everton story.
Good on you. Good on you.
Good story.
I had a comment from Jamie. Very appreciative. Saying well spoken, Pablo. Very worthy candidate.
Well, as I say, I've probably been a little bit more outspoken than I was planning to be, but I'd rather be. I mean, this is I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician at all, and I'm not. You know, I'm actually not trying to get people to vote for me. I didn't come on here to get people to vote for me. I came on here to get people to vote. I just want people to actually take this seriously, because I think the biggest challenge that the FAB have got is to basically convince people that they are genuine and they are worthy of their support, and that, you know, there's a lot of Evertonians to represent. You know, there's an awful lot of Evertonians to represent, and it's always the same. Whenever you got something by committee, it always sort of gets filtered down, and it always gets like this. But they're a genuine independent organisation. You know, as I say, that's a really key thing for me to get across. The meetings that they have, they are not Everton meetings that they are invited to. They are FAB meetings. And when they have FAB business to do, they ask the Everton people to leave the room because it's nothing to do with them. It's FAB business. That's that. And I think if you look at the minutes, you'll see that it is literally, they'll literally say, so-and-so did this presentation, then they left. So it's literally says on all of them, so-and-so left the room, so-and-so left the room. All they're doing, the Everton lot, is they're coming in, they're doing the presentations, they're listening to the questions, listening to the answers, and then it's FAB business. So it's just, I think that it's got a bit of a bad rep because the club have been so rubbish, and people, they're just getting tarred with the same brush as it, I think.
Yeah. Well, Jamie says, don't worry about it, because this is lots of outspoken people on this. Jamie more than most. We don't show all of his comments.
Well, as I say, it's been a long time. I mean, as Dan said, I've spoken on a few spaces, and I wasn't really that comfortable at doing it at first. But But I'd rather just be sort of honest to say I know bits and bobs from over the years, and it's not as if it's anything that's going to be like I'm going to get sued over or anything like that, because I know it's true, and I'd say there's so many of them. There's so many that are like snidey things that have gone on at the club over the years, and that we've not been well run for a long time. It has been run very much sort of hand to mouth. This is sort of the culmination of that for me, really, because I don't want to be talking about Wayne Rooney 20 years ago. I want to be talking about, keeping hold of Jordan Pickford, not, thinking that, and making scapegoats out of players and things like that, because we've basically lived hand to mouth. We basically sold all of our, player of the season got sold on a regular basis for quite a long time. And we just can't keep going like that. And I think genuinely what's happened is, I think that when Carlo decided he was going, I think that that is when Mr. Mashiri, just my own opinion, I think that is when Mr. Mashiri pulled the plug and said, you know what, I'm not putting any more money into this now. I think that he got Benitez in cheap. We only bought Damari Gray, Andros Townsend free, and he just said, listen, all I need you to do is to just keep us in the Premier League for the next few seasons till we get in that stadium, and then I'm selling it and I'm off. That's my opinion of it. That's what I think it is. And I think that basically that's been Ken Wright's plan as well. I think Ken Wright has literally been trying to stay well enough and keep as much money in the club as possible so that you can get into the stadium, get all the glory for getting us a new stadium, and then he can start off and ride off into the sunset. And unfortunately, they've just fallen short. They've just fallen short by a few years. So there you go.
Yeah. We've got sorry, let me put that on.
Pablo's opinion on Deitch. I was underwhelmed when we got him. I was underwhelmed when we got him. But I like what he had to say when he started off, and then he sort of started repeating himself all the time. He uses quite a few cliches like the hard yards and all that lot. Or every press conference got very, very samey. But he was in a completely and utterly untenable situation, and I think with the relief of it all, I think a lot of us have sort of not really realised just how close we actually were. We're talking last minute goals against Chelsea, against Tottenham, against Wolves. Without that, without Pickford making that save in the 94th minute of the last game, we were so close, and I mean so close. We cannot get that close again. We just cannot get that close again. And the worry that I've got with the changes that are going on at the moment is that I have a feeling that all of the finances and all of this thing we're talking about with MSP and all these people coming in, I think my again, own opinion, no inside knowledge, I think it's all about the stadium. And I think that Deitch has been saying consistently, well, we'll have a look at what we've got. We'll have a look at what we've got. We'll have a look at what we've got. Because I think that's what he's been told. You've got to look at what you got because you're not getting any money. So even with Anthony Gordon getting sold, that's gone to pay off what we needed to pay off and get where we needed to get to. I don't think there's any money. I think maybe if we sold Onana, there might be some, but I think it's wheeling and dealing. I don't think that anyone, personally, I'm not getting excited about new people coming in to improve the playing side. I think the new people are coming in to get us into the stadium and to make sure that the stadium gets finished and paid for, and then we'll start looking at the playing side. That's my own opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, and Dan will probably back us up on this, is that our idea for the channel is that we try to be as positive as possible. And we try and see the good in, even when we look at the game beforehand and we go through it afterwards and things like that. And we try and find the positive. And it was hard, Dan, wasn't it? After the Newcastle game and stuff like that, Fulham home, it was hard going, but we did a thing the other day where Dan's asked people to just predict, just a bit of fun, predict what you think and now about what I will get on. And Everton fans are still positive and think that we can get ourselves, like you say, into that stadium and do enough over the next season at least to get us there.
I wouldn't say I'm confident. I'm not confident about it in any way. I'm genuinely not. And the thing is about me, I am probably the most positive person that I know, except when it comes to Everton. because it's just, you know, and I try my very best to be as positive as possible about things, and I try to be even-handed about things. I was saying, I'm a Samaritan's listening volunteer, so I can listen to people and hear their arguments and bounce things around with them. And I don't always give advice to people all the time. So I will generally try to bounce things around with people. So why's my backdrop gone off?
Green screen's gone off there.
All right, fine. So yeah, I'll try. I'd rather sort of talk to people and bounce things around with them to help them make their own decisions, rather than if someone comes to me and says, should I do A or should I do B? I won't say you should do A. I will say, well, what's the ups and downs of A? What's the ups and downs of B? So there you go. What if this? What if that? Now you make your own decision, because that's quite important, and that's what you have to do with the Samaritans. You know, we don't give advice at Samaritans. We just sort of bounce things around with people and just try to get them to see that next step. So I think that, you know, for things like this, I would hope that would stand me in good stead for I don't know, really, just realizing that you can't just literally just snap your fingers and change everything overnight. We're in a really, really bad situation as a football club in a lot of different ways. So this is not going to be a one-stop shop, quick click your fingers solution, but genuinely do think that the FAB will have value, and I think that it will have a say, and I think it's probably the best chance we've got of having our views represented as fans. So that's my
I completely agree with you, and you coming on this channel now it's made me look at it in a different light, and I'm sure it has many people in the comments as well. And you've made it more like it is so important, and that's what you said to me. That's your message. You ain't come on this. I asked you to come on this channel, by the way, and you come on it to just say how important the FAB is. You haven't come on to say vote for me. You've come on to say, just make sure you get behind this FAB, because this is very important for Everton. And because you know it's important and you've got that thing about you would be cracking on it. You would. And by the way, people, he's got the links on there. He's got it back now. Get on and vote. Like Pablo said, it doesn't, let me just swing him across. He's not even bothered who you go for. He's just saying vote for
exactly
three people. Yeah.
This is how you do it. It's dead easy. You just don't need to have a supporter number. You just put supporter number in. You just see the 8 names, click on the names, read the bios, and then just choose who you want. 1 vote, 2 vote, or 3 votes. It's up to you. But please do vote. It's the same as a general election. You can't moan about how it goes if you didn't have a say in it. You know, you can't. So
no, it's been a good one, this, and that's what I try and do on the Bluecast channel. I try and just give the subscribers as much Everton content as I can, and just get us as close to Everton as we can. And I feel like listening to you now has got us really close to it, and made me think, and probably Paul, and how important this is now, because these 2 seasons have been awful, and we've never needed the FAB more. We've never needed the new board more, and I think we all just need to pull together. Because if we don't, we'll be in trouble again. And I generally do. But I do believe that we can have I think Daesh will steady the ship, and he might get us mid-table. And like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. I do believe that he's got to it's going to be like a David Moyes era for me, like cheap signings, push us mid-table, and then make yourself that solid that you're always mid-table, and you might get near Europa League one time. I feel like that's where Everton have got to be when they're in that new stadium, and then hopefully the new stadium then takes care of us and sorts us out financially to actually sign a few gems.
It'll definitely. It is a game changer. There's no 2 ways about it. As I say, I'm hopeful, because I'm always hopeful when it comes to Everton, and that's why we go to the match every week. You know, it's the hope that kills you, as Jamie said in the chat. But I'm not confident of it, but I am hopeful that it will happen. But as I say, for me, I think if Deitch can get a full pre-season with them, I think if he can get some square pegs in square holes, because obviously last year he had to be playing player out of position and things like that. But I genuinely think that we can that he could do that. But yeah, as Jamie's saying there, the FAB for me, honestly, a lot of people don't know who it is. So even if you voted, tell your mates, tell people to vote as well. Share that. Don't just read the links yourself. Actually share the links, because some people will not know about it. They won't understand what it is. They won't understand what it does. And honestly, I think it's really, really important. I think it's Well, as I say, I've said my piece on that.
No, you've been bang on it. A lot of that angry. Go on, Paul.
I was just going to say it's been informative because I didn't see it how you've explained it tonight.
I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but that's my understanding of it, and that's my understanding. What I've told you is what I think correct. But again, if you go onto the Fab website, it's all there. It's all written out. It's all written out as to what they consult with Everton on. Because it's not about whether we've got enough ketchup or mustards in the concession stand. It's about what is the plan going forwards. And there are bits where Everton are going to come in and they're going to do a presentation and they will say to the Fab, listen, this next bit, you have to keep confidential. But we are sharing this with you, but you cannot share that to the fans yet. But we are showing you this is what we are looking, and we want your opinion on what you think. Those things are happening as well. If you read, I say, go and read the minutes. If you don't know what the Fab is, go and have a look on their website. All the information is on there as to what it is, because I genuinely think it's real. I think a lot of people don't know what it is, and they just assume that it's just something crap.
They think it's useless. Yeah, they think they're that angry. Everton fans are that angry.
Exactly.
That
I get it. I was the same. Yeah. I was exactly the same. I say the first message I said to Jazz, I literally messaged him on Twitter and said, were you actually really in the room with Mishiri? And he sent me back a photograph of him with his arm around Mishiri. And he said, I'm just going to put that out now because everyone's asking if I was actually there or not, and things like that. And then, as I say, I ended up sort of chatting backwards and forwards a little bit about getting interviews for my son and things like that. But there's so much good in the club since, but it's just been battered out of people. People are exhausted after these last 2 seasons that they're just so suspicious and they just mistrust anything that comes out of the club and anything linked to the club. And you're risking throwing out a lot of good stuff by having that attitude, because the Fab is independent. And I'm not on the Fab. I'm not here to big it up. I'm not here to... That is my understanding of it. It is absolutely independent. It is not just a mouthpiece for the club. Yeah. And that's the main thing that I want people to go away with. Vote for me. No, I'm joking. Yeah. No, that's fine.
I think a lot will, to be fair. I think a lot will. And I just wanted you to come across the way you are, and you've absolutely smashed it. You've just been yourself and you smashed it, and you've got our heads back on it. And I think we've all got, at times like this, you've just got to stick together, pull together. And I like your intentions, and I really do think if you're on that Fab, I think you've got all the right intentions. I don't just think you're going to be a yes man. I generally think that the way you are and the way you've spoken, I don't think you'll sleep at night if things are going wrong in that thing. The way you spoke about camera, I don't think you'll sleep at night. I don't think you'll argue, but I think you'll always be honest.
No, I'll always listen. I will always listen to other points of view. I'll always take points of view with things, and I'm not afraid to say that I was wrong. I got something wrong. I'll back down on things if I think that I'm wrong. But if I'll say my piece, and that'll be that. So I'll do that. And I need to definitely finish off with Mr.
Yeah.
It's just a ride, kids. It's just a ride. That's definitely what I want all Evertonians to know. It's just a ride.
It's just a ride.
Get on that roller coaster. Get on that Everton roller coaster. Pablo, I'd love to have you on again, to be fair. It's been cracking, and I'm sure everyone would want you on again. So maybe in a month's time or something, we'll have you on, see how you're getting on. Whether you get on the Fab or not, I want you on. Because I just think you speak cracking.
I'm always happy to talk Everton. That's fine.
Yeah. I think you speak cracking Everton stuff, and I think everyone's enjoyed you on, mate. Good luck with the Fab. I really hope you're on now, to be fair, after listening to you this channel.
Well, we didn't know. Zephyr in the chat wasn't going to bother voting, lads, but caught the last 5. So that's what I want. That's what I want. So if you're going to vote now, Zephyr, nice one, cool. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I wanted people to be walking away with.
My next one will go out to my Twitter as well. For some reason, we had a thing at the start. Sorry for that. But my next one will go out to Twitter, and we'll get more looks on it. And that's what I want to do. I want to do everything I can to help the football club that I love. And that's what Pablo wants to do. And that's what Paul wants to do. And that's what I'm going to do on this channel. Put as much stuff out there as I can to get this football club decent and do the best I can to bring us together and get Everton Football Club good. Last words, Paul. I'll go first, and then I'll hit you, Pablo, to finish the show.
It's been brilliant, Pablo. Thank you for coming on. Very educational, and I understand the Fab much better. And everyone vote. Everyone get involved and vote, and get other people to vote as well.
And Pablo, last words.
Yeah, it's just a ride.
That's perfect.
That's just right. It's just a ride.